friends, the number one food to help you lose weight and keep it off is something you need to eat daily for the rest of your life. Realistically, this isn't going to be like a sprinkle, like taking a pill, but it needs to be a significant amount to make you feel full and satisfied. Now, timing, amount, and form, they're all crucial in what you pick to eat. And can you imagine eating the same thing every day? To me, that's pretty boring. And I can imagine that that's really hard to keep up. This is why so many diets fail. Now, I have the perfect solution to prevent boredom and to encourage success. And this number one food group has thousands of members. And no, it's not processed. It's all natural. It's super nutritious, satisfying, satiating, and convenient too. But you have to eat it with every meal, with your snacks, unprocessed, and understand that if you don't continue to eat them, then you will gain the weight back. Diet is not a cure. It's a lifestyle. Diets, they really need to be personalized. And that's why most people can't stick to someone else's weight loss meals. And the most important thing for success is that the foods you pick follow the principles on how to lose weight and keep the unhealthy weight off. And the best part about this food group is that it is the best tasting food group and the most abundant food group on this planet. Do you think 100 different options to start is enough to keep you from getting bored? Because if we can prevent that, it'll help you lose weight and keep it off for years, activating GLP-1 naturally in your body so you don't have to spend thousands of dollars. It reverses insulin resistance. It lowers blood sugars. It lowers lipids. It lowers cholesterol. You will feel more energy. You'll feel better because you will have a healthier gut microbiome and less inflammation and not be hungry. Your health will be truly transformed inside out. So here's a list of 100 different convenient, edible, low-calorie foods from the number one food group to help people lose weight and get healthy fruit. Some of these fruits are tastier than others, depending on your preference. You can pick from hard fruits to soft fruits, sweet fruits, or sour fruits. And remember, all of these are going to be seasonal. You can mix and match them throughout the day. And contrary to what is shared on social media, there's a plethora of studies that show that the more fruit people eat, the healthier they become and the more weight they lose. But you have to eat fruits at the right time, in the right amount, and in the right form. That diversity of flavor, fragrance, texture, it keeps every single meal exciting. Its convenience makes it easy to fit into any busy person's lifestyle. And I should know, I have a really busy lifestyle ever since I started medical school, and life only got busier after having children. Now, on this list, I'm sure you can find something that you're going to enjoy without the hassle of food prep. Some of you are probably thinking there's just no way your body can handle eating fruits because you've been told that you're going to have blood sugar spikes. Some have even compared fruits to sugar bombs like cakes and candy. And you probably think that you will become insulin resistant if you eat fruit. Well, you're going to be happy to learn that that isn't true. Have you ever had bell pepper? That's a fruit. It has very little sugar. How about a cucumber? My favorite is the Persian cucumber because it is the crunchiest. Now, other people will tell you that there's plenty of pesticides on them, so you should avoid them. You'll be happy to learn that there are ways around that too. Now, besides buying organic, you can also wash some of that pesticide residue off. And then you have the people who think that fruits contain poison. Well, they're partially true because poison isn't everything. And yes, some fruits aren't edible at all, and others are only edible if you prepare them properly, like elderberries. Some parts of fruits have chemicals that you shouldn't eat, like cyanide in apple seeds. But who eats bags of apple seeds? Grape seeds, on the other hand, are super beneficial, and they've been used to help with wound healing. They have a ton of phytonutrients that are strong antioxidants, including one called resveratrol. So some of what you have heard is probably hyperbole. And then there are other people who think that the fruit grown now are not like ancient fruit. They are less nutritious, they're tasteless, and there's so much GMO. And yes, that's partially true. Bananas have been cultivated to be one size. Well, your chicken is fatter and tasteless and bigger than in the 1950s. And the dairy that you're drinking has growth hormones, PFAS, and mycotoxins. So literally, there's no food that hasn't been altered or filled with toxins because all plants and animals are grown on this earth in which we have polluted. But Certain plants do accumulate more toxins than others, just like certain animals. And so this is why it's important to diversify your food. In America, we think of fruit as an afterthought, but ancient cultures around the world appreciate fruits and its use as an effective preventive medicine tool. Take the common apple, for example. Apples have been long praised in folk medicine, especially in Europe and Asia, for their ability to support digestion, improve respiratory health, and even ward off illness. Now, they help people lose weight and stay healthy. Have you heard the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away? Literally, apples are used to soothe stomach issues and treat fevers. Now, yesterday, I met with my friend at our weekly church fellowship. She was telling me all about her Hawaiian cruise and how on the second day, she had really bad motion sickness. So the ship's doctor gave her some meclizine and told her to eat green apples. And every day, that's what she did, and she didn't have any more problems afterwards. Have you heard of the BRAT Diet? Modern medicine still prescribes the BRAT Diet, which consists of B for bananas, R for rice, A for applesauce, and T for toast, which can help ease abdominal symptoms when people don't feel well. Now, apples have both soluble and insoluble fiber that feeds and promotes a healthy gut microbiome. And notice how the BRAT diet includes 2 fruits prescribed by medical doctors for people who don't feel well. And notice how these 4 foods are low in fat and low in protein. Fat and protein are 2 difficult to digest nutrients that actually can cause more reflux. And when you get reflux, or when you're vomiting, or when you're having a lot of stomach acid, you don't want to put something that's more difficult to digest. Apples are also considerably less acidic than your stomach acid, and this can help to alkalinize or neutralize some of that stomach acid. And in addition, apples contain minerals like calcium, magnesium that can further reduce the pH in your stomach. Now, do you see why fruits are more than just balls of sugar? They literally contain thousands of nutrients that are strong health promoters. Now, the fiber and the antioxidants, they actually interact with your hormones. They interact with your immune system and your gut and your nervous system. And together, this gives you health. However, if you like sugar, the best way to eat it is in a whole fruit. It's packed with sugar, electrolytes, vitamins, hydration, and fiber. Exactly what you need when you want energy. Now, the most important part of the fruit is the whole fruit matrix, which allows all those ingredients to be slowly extracted and gently enter into your body. Now, the food matrix is so important. And today, we're actually eating foods that have no food matrix. And that's what's destroying our metabolism and immunity. Now, when you eat an all-natural food with a matrix, it prevents the nutrients from shocking our system. It's like shooting a medication in your vein. Sometimes the body can be overwhelmed and caught by surprise. Have you ever been caught by surprise and had this unpleasant feeling because you just were not prepared? I remember the first time that happened was when I was living in the dorms. And sure enough, every time we had midterms or finals the next day, somebody would go pull the fire alarm, and then all of us would have to parade out in our pajamas, staring at everybody waiting to go inside. That just was not a pleasant surprise. You know, once my friend jumped on someone else's boat and flipped the whole boat over so everybody got wet. And that was an unpleasant thing that happened for the people who were in the boat. And we're doing this to our bodies every time we rapidly pour down calories, whether that's a smoothie or a shake or just soda. Our metabolism can handle that. And so every time that happens, it just converts everything to fat. And that includes when you have high blood sugars. So eventually you'll have high fat and high blood sugars, and that's your body crying out saying it needs some help. Slow down. So you can either, number 1, chew your food 40 times, or stick to foods that are low in calories so that you can automatically buffer this from happening. And that's why fruits are so perfect. It's like chewing on water because most of a fruit is water. Now, if you've eaten a BRAT diet for a while, you will probably notice that you'll be losing weight, even though you're eating carbs, bananas, rice, apples, toast, carbs, and more carbs. But they are so low in fat and really low in protein that they make people lose weight because fat and protein, they spike insulin. So why is it okay to eat fruits when you're not feeling well? And it's not okay to eat these fruits when you are actually feeling well. Don't you want to preserve feeling well? And it's probably because the other stuff you're eating is not allowing you to metabolize the fruits because they're usually probably high in fat. People lose weight when they restrict their diet, right? So if you go on a BRAT diet, high carbs, you will lose weight. And yet when you eat carbs along with your diet, like let's say bread, you will gain weight. Have you ever thought about why that happens? When you check your blood sugars after you've been losing weight on a BRAT diet, it'll be much lower in response to the same triggering foods. And this is because you will be more insulin sensitive. This means you will have lower insulin levels, which helps you lose weight. And some people may find that during a stressful event, like an active infection, your blood sugars actually may go up, even if you don't eat any food. And this is because you're going to have hormones like cortisol in your system trying to fight off the stress, and cortisol increases your blood sugars. So it's really important that you learn tools to help you de-stress your life and improve your mental health as a part of just your routine, normal daily lifestyle. And if you're interested in that, please let me know in the comments in the show notes. Now let's talk about timing. Fruits are seasonal items. So if you eat strawberries in December, it's probably not going to taste so good. And that means you're not going to really eat much of it and it'll be more expensive. And really, if you can't eat enough of it, it's not going to help you in your weight loss journey. Now, not only that, but it's not going to have the optimal amount of nutrients like polyphenols, which actually gives fruits its flavor. Polyphenols also serve another purpose. They are antioxidants to help you protect your DNA. But when it comes to weight loss, they actually can inhibit digestive enzymes to slow down your metabolism, and that helps you lose some weight. Now, what's more important is timing when you eat those fruits. That is your key to success. And the best time to eat fruit is right before you're going to eat your meal or snack. Fruits are tasty. They're low calorie. They're full of hydration. They're a great appetizer. They get your taste buds going. They make you satiated before you even start the other stuff by stimulating GLP-1. Literally natural GLP-1 where your body can regulate. People pay thousands of dollars to get a synthetic molecule that acts like GLP-1 agonists like Ozempic and Wegovy. I can save thousands of dollars a month and make my own GLP-1. Recently, I met an ophthalmologist who was trying to lose some weight and trying not to go on a GLP-1 agonist. And incredibly, he said he was eating a whole food plant-based diet. But the problem is he loves snacks. So he's probably only eating one meal that's whole food plant-based and all his other meals are snacks. And I love snacks too, and I eat them all the time. But the trick is your snacks need to be just as good in quality as your meals. And so I start all my snacks with whole fruit. And in fact, sometimes my snacks are just fruit. So let's go back to the concept of food matrix because we have a plethora of foods chemically engineered to manipulate and destroy the food matrix. And at home, we can do that too when we blend it, when we chop it, when we bake it, when we add heat to it, when we deep fry it. These are all ways to make your foods more calorically dense. And when you grind it to a powder, it gets more and more dangerous, especially when you start separating the powder. So for example, refined flours where they're lacking the germ and the wheat. That's a huge problem, whether you're eating it coating your chicken wing or in a piece of toast, right? White flour is lacking that food matrix, but then it still has some resistant starch that can help buffer your metabolism. But then when we start eating foods that dissect that white flour, so for example, chemicals like sugar, then you lost that resistant starch. So now you have no protection whatsoever. And this is why when you add sugar to refined flour, you get this huge engineered destructive food that we are eating, pretending it's actually all natural and it's not. So I think people have a difficult time understanding food processing. So let's take an apple. You say you cut it up in slices. You are technically destroying the food matrix, but the food is still in large chunks that has all its matrix. So when you eat it, you still get the fiber protecting the water and the phytonutrients, right? But then if you juice the apple, now you've separated them and where that juice is separate from the rest of the solid ingredients. So now you have a next degree processing where the juice is less metabolically protective than if you ate the whole apple. Well, you can bake with that apple, right? You can cut it up and bake it, and then that heat destroys the food matrix. And then if you add sugars and fats like butter, and then you add refined flour, you've made that now into a metabolic time bomb. And the more you process your food where it resembles nothing like the texture of the whole food, like let's say applesauce and apple juice, it is less healthy, less metabolically protective, because you're going to eat those foods a lot faster and it's going to digest in your system a lot faster. This is why the best way to eat food, especially fruit, is to eat it unprocessed. That means you eat it whole, eat it fresh, especially if it's freshly picked. Usually fruits that's freshly picked have an extra fragrance because it has more polyphenols and nutrients in that food. Try not to blend it or juice it at all unless you really are undergoing some kind of stress and you can't chew enough of that food to get enough of the nutrients in. Chewing is very protective because when you can chew your food, it requires action, it requires time, and it requires muscle. And so as you're salivating, you're actually releasing hormones to talk to your brain that then talks to your gut to tell everybody that you're eating and that you're not going to be as hungry. So you get fuller faster. And all this is super important to do before you eat more calorically dense foods, right? So to front load your meals with fruit. Now, if you already have glucose metabolism issues, you may be very hesitant to include sweet fruits like oranges because you will see a sugar spike after you eat an orange. After all, we give people orange juice when their blood sugars goes down, when they have a hypoglycemic episode. But orange juice, remember, there's no chewing to it. It's just a pure liquid. So if you ate oranges, the whole orange, with the fiber and the pulp, it's actually going to be more protective for your metabolism than if you drank orange juice. Keep in mind, everybody who drinks orange juice should have a sugar spike, even professional athletes, unless you have an absorption problem in which you're not absorbing the sugar. And contrary to what you're hearing on social media, there's no such thing as a bad sugar spike because we don't know what that number is, right? It really depends on your sugar load. However, a prolonged sugar rise over 2 hours is not good for you. The longer that stays elevated, the more opportunities that sugar has to stick to proteins to mess up the messaging in your body. So everybody has a sugar-centric way to eat for some reason on the internet. And you're going to hear people telling you to eat protein and fat with your sugar. If you eat protein and fat, you're just delaying it from emptying in your stomach and you'll have persistently elevated sugar still for the long run, right? So it start elevating after 2 hours. So that's not very helpful. And remember that the BRAT diet is recommended for people who have stomach issues, right? For GI distress. Diabetics also eat this diet when they have GI distress. And when you're under stress, you actually get more insulin resistance for a temporary amount of time because of stress hormones like cortisol. And yet we still recommend that people eat this high carbohydrate, low fat, low protein diet when they don't feel well. And this is because in just a matter of a few days, when you cut out the fat and the protein, you dramatically will start improving your insulin sensitivity in response to carbohydrates. So in fact, you're correcting the underlying problem, insulin resistance, that's causing the high sugars. And that's the confusion of carbohydrate metabolism. Most people are focused on the symptom of high blood sugars and not actually addressing the root cause of why you have high blood sugars. I don't disagree that high blood sugars are very bad. There's lots of complications from blindness to kidney failure and to high lipids. So many things wrong with high blood sugars, especially in the immune system. However, my whole pet peeve is that they have the root cause wrong. And if they would just dig a little deeper, read published paper on the history of nutrition to see how the doctors worked this science out a long time ago, like when insulin was invented, they would actually understand how to address high blood sugars more effectively. And they would see that the root cause is actually saturated fat, which starts the insulin resistance that then causes high persistent blood sugars after people eat carbohydrates. Naturally, if you avoid carbohydrates, you won't see the blood sugar spikes because you're not eating to spike your blood sugars. But instead, what are they eating? I mean, you have to eat something from one of the macronutrient food groups, right? So then they focus on fat and protein, which actually gets them more insulin resistant so that when they go back to eating carbohydrates, they have huge sugar spikes. However, if they would just upgrade the quality of their carbohydrates, keep it in whole food matrix, and keep their fat low, then they will notice that they will get more insulin sensitive and that their blood sugars will be better controlled over time. And of course, a real test is when you eat carbohydrates. But if you eat carbohydrates and you have a better blood sugar response, then you're getting more insulin sensitive. And so I found a study done a long time ago in which they had volunteer medical students that they split into 4 camps. The first group only got water, so they fasted. The second group only ate fat. The third group only ate proteins, and the fourth group, well, they only ate carbohydrates, including junky carbohydrates. And look at this graph. Within 3 days, the group that ate the most sugar, carbohydrates, had the best blood sugar response. They had the lowest blood sugar levels. Whereas the fasting and high-fat dieters, they actually had the worst blood sugar response. I'm sure you're flabbergasted with disbelief. I was actually surprised as well. But in medicine, there exists lots of rumors and misguided beliefs that have been going on for years because it's hard to come up with funding to, again, remind people and prove the effects of food and nutrition. And of course, when people find something that follows their narrative of how they want to eat, then that's what they're going to spread around, right? So a lot of rumors spread around like wildfire. I don't know how it gets spread, but I just know these days it's so easy to spread global rumors within a day. For me, my experience in the medical system for over 25 years, all I see is more infectious complications with people with more diabetes and more medications for their diabetes, but they're just getting sicker and sicker because we're using medicines to band-aid a lifestyle problem instead of addressing the root cause, dietary habits. And to be fair, physicians were not equipped to address problems of daily dietary habits because to change your habit, you have to do it every day. And counseling people, let's say even on smoking cessation once a year, isn't effective. They have to actually practice it every day. Likewise, talking to people about dietary changes once a year on their annual visit is really practically not going to be effective, right? Even if you visited your doctor 4 times a year, it's not effective. And we know that because people are getting worse diet quality and we're seeing the metabolic complications. And then now you have social media, all the complexities with social media with everybody having their own opinions. And that's why I'm making these videos, hoping to correct some of the poor messaging. But it's really hard because most people still confuse the cause of diabetes, which is the inability to process glucose, from the symptoms of diabetes, which is the high blood sugars and the complications of high blood sugars, which include high blood pressure, high cholesterol, kidney failure, urinary tract infections, blindness, the list goes on, right? High blood sugars, they are not the cause of diabetes, but a symptom of diabetes. And we're just addressing the symptoms like a Band-Aid. And of course, lowering blood sugars can reduce some complications, but people still progress if they do it the wrong way. And being diabetic doesn't just affect carbohydrate metabolism. It also affects fat metabolism. Elevated saturated fat causes ectopic fat deposition in the wrong places, and it also causes higher levels of LDL and ApoB, which transport cholesterol. And so this is why people have high cholesterol when they have uncontrolled diabetes or prediabetes. But just because people still get insulin sensitive when they eat junky carbs doesn't mean that they should eat junky carbs, because good quality carbohydrates, the unprocessed natural carbohydrates, are really what we need for our health, right? We have the liberty to eat anything, but really should we? Because we're building our bodies. It's like building your house. What kind of materials do you want to use for your house to be rebuilt?
Hi friends, I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
If we pick poor quality foods, it's not surprising that we'll start getting diseases, right? We won't have the infrastructure to support health. And that's what's happening when we're eating ultra-processed carbohydrates. They are just simply poor quality foods and we're eating them in abundance. It's like the three little pigs. I don't know if you remember the story. You have the pig with the straw hut, the pig with the wood hut, or the pig with the brick building, right? And the big bad wolf comes along, and which building is he going to be able to destroy first, right? So he blows down the straw one without a problem, then blows down the wood one with very little effort, but he can't blow down the brick building, right? Because the little pig who built the brick building understood that the infrastructure needs to be good quality. And so when we eat ultra-processed foods, we're building our home, right? Our fortress, our own bodies with junk. And of course, it's, any kind of stress, we're just going to topple over. When we eat fruit, we're actually eating good quality foods, good quality nutrients, good quality carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients to be able to give our bodies the tools or the material to remodel ourselves. And when you eat fruit, you're actually stimulating satiety hormones like GLP-1. The strong fiber matrix automatically puts a check in how much volume you can intake. The anthocyanins or the phytonutrients in that fruit also does a number to your mucosa, because if you eat too much, you'll notice your mouth isn't going to feel too comfortable and your gut will start going to the bathroom more. So all of this is naturally regulated in how much fruit we consume on a daily basis. And if you find people and ask them, the ones who eat a lot of fruit, they're not going to be overweight because fruits are low calorie and they're full of water. The average fruit has over 75% of its material as water. That's why they're heavy. But in reality, people aren't just eating fruit, and the abnormal blood sugar spikes comes because of whatever else they're eating to prevent them from metabolizing that fruit. And usually that's some kind of fat, saturated fat. Even olive oil is 14% saturated fat. And many people aren't actually eating fruit fresh, right? You're eating it processed with added sugar, refined starches, maybe some salt and fat. Apple pies, fruit cups. You're not eating the fruit fresh. And when you eat processed fruits with all these other active chemicals, you will change your metabolism and the fruit will not protect you from all the other added ingredients. However, if you ate that fruit first and you ate that fruit fresh, you can significantly reduce your weight, lower your blood sugars, but you have to eat at least 2 servings before the rest of your meal. So I know a set of twins who are opposite in what they eat. One who's lean, swims every day, performs well, does well in school academically. He's socially well adjusted, and he is just a happy ball of energy. His twin brother, on the other hand, doesn't like fruit. Everything he eats is made out of cheap quality carbohydrates, made out of flour and sugar, added with salt and fat. He's morbidly obese. He's not motivated even to walk. Academically, he's not doing well. And all he wants to do is play on his iPad. And this is just one example in how our food choices can influence their ability to socialize, their ability to academically perform, and whether or not they're going to be physically active, and whether they're going to be in a good mood and connected with other people. And so the second little boy is addicted to carbohydrates and fats. I mean, so is everybody else, because it simply tastes good. And when you mix the two, the texture is unbelievable. People are addicted to that texture, and that texture changes your brain chemistry so that all you want to do is seek more. But unfortunately, excess saturated fat, well, it stops carbohydrate metabolism, and you can either eat that saturated fat or your body can make your own saturated fat with extra calories. And then when you do eat carbohydrates for the next meal or even the day after, you're going to have blood sugar spikes as well as insulin spikes. And the higher your insulin, the more fat you are storing. And then you also store fat in the wrong places. So fat in your visceral organ is very dangerous. That actually promotes more insulin resistance. And that means the fat can get stored in your liver and your pancreas and your muscles, which are your largest metabolic organ to buffer you against fat and sugar metabolism problems. But without insulin, none of this could happen. And that's why lots of people focus their diets on getting their insulin low. But if you do it the wrong way, you're missing quality material that you need to rebuild your body. You may be so confused about whether or not you should eat bread. Now, have you read the ingredients? Have you seen what they label as bread these days? Bread should have only one caloric ingredient, and that's flour. But many of the breads on the market are really a form of cake because they add sugar and fat. I mean, take banana bread. Sounds healthy, right? But that's not really bread. That's not even really fruit, even though there's fruit in it. That's cake with a high amount of added sugar and saturated fat, which triggers insulin resistance, which results in the inability to metabolize the banana and the flour. Now, we call these processed foods carbohydrates, but in reality, they are fatty carbohydrates. I think they're worse than French fries because at least you know a French fry is deep fried. If you touch it, it feels greasy, so you know there's fat. But when you're eating cake and other processed breads, like banana bread, where they hide the fat inside, it's just tasty. It changes the texture, but you can't really tell it's fat. And texture is what processed food companies manipulate by adding sugars, fat, and emulsifiers. And unless you're mindful, when you eat low-fat foods, it's really not low fat because then you overeat those foods and you're still eating other meals. And when you eat carbohydrates and fats at the same time, even if it's not the same meal, but it's maybe the meal afterwards or the meal the next day, the meal that you ate maybe 3 meals ago can affect how you process the meal that you're eating now. So remember, if you decide to go fat-free, you have to stick to whole foods, whole plant foods, and you will see a dramatic decline in your blood sugars within a couple of days. It is so dramatic that people actually have bottomed out because they didn't stop their medications. And that's why it's really important to get together with your medical doctor so that he or she can help you adjust your medications as your diet changes. Nobody wants you to have low blood sugars. I mean, it's actually very dangerous. You can pass out. And it's really that easy in theory. But to implement removing fat is another story. But if you did successfully remove the fat, you can reverse the root cause of diabetes, which is type 2 diabetes, that is, which is insulin resistance. And if you get more insulin sensitive, you will be able to tolerate more carbohydrates. But the carbohydrate should still be good quality. Otherwise, you're going to go back to square one. And when you decrease your insulin need, you actually will start losing weight. And honestly, fat-free items just aren't as tasty. Have you tried fat-free cookies? They're not as tasty as cookies with fat, right? Fat and carbohydrates, it's a very addictive combo, and it makes everyone overeat, including me. But that combination just isn't in sweets, biscuits, pizza, your pretzel with dipping sauce, or maybe your Alfredo noodle, or lasagna, or your breakfast buttered pancake with bacon. The list is endless. And I bet if you turn around and read the ingredients in your favorite bread, or your favorite noodle dish, or rice dish, or corn dish, you will find some sort of fat with that carbohydrate. And all these fats, butter, lard, ghee, coconut oil, vegetable oil, seed oils, olive oils, they don't help you when you're having problems metabolizing carbohydrates. And if you remove the fat, try eating that same item without the fat. Make it yourself at home. Do a fat-free version, and you'll notice you're not going to eat as much because it doesn't taste as good. In fact, you may even change your mind about eating that food. And that's exactly the type of food you should learn to eat to protect your metabolism. Now, the Japanese have a saying, hara hachibu, which means that they eat until they're 80% full. Now, I probably just butchered how they said it, but that's because I'm not Japanese, so I apologize. So their whole point is when you're done eating your meal, you shouldn't make room for dessert, and you shouldn't be dreaming about your next meal. We really should eat to live, not live to eat. And since I changed my palate, I still thoroughly enjoy my food. But after I'm done eating it, I just feel like, okay, that was pretty good. Let me go do something else more enjoyable, right? The mindset is super important to avoid this landscape of all these processed engineered foods that you will find tempting you every day. And the food industry, it's like they work 24/7, right? They've been at it for decades. They're trying to create irresistible items where you can't just eat just one. And instead of looking at their ads as a chemical food advertising for addiction, manipulation of our hormones, and looking at it with sort of a skeptical eye and understanding that when we eat these engineered foods, we're basically lab experiments. And we want to know if it's really true. And it turns out it is very true. We just can't eat just one. And unfortunately, we have connected food as an agent to express our emotions. After a breakup, how many people eat a tub of ice cream or eat ice cream after a stressful day at work? But if you work every day or 5 days out of 7, you eat ice cream almost every day of the week. We've lost our ability to relax without food. And many have developed an unhealthy psychological relationship with food. Food gives people pleasure at the same level of gambling, and it shouldn't do that. It should be an activity, first and foremost, being with people, not just eating food. Now, if you've ever had abdominal surgery or hospitalized for abdominal issues, you will know what it means to be fasting and not to eat and to be hungry. And when they give you that first meal, it'll be terrific, even though you're basically just eating a liquid diet, right? It's nothing to write home about, and you're getting flavored sugar water, maybe some broth. And the first day is great. The second day, you get the same thing. The third day, you get the same thing. And sooner than later, you will complain that you're sick and tired of eating the same food over and over, and especially when it doesn't have any texture. And they all complain they're losing weight. And this is the advantage of eating a liquid diet. And wouldn't it be awesome if you can eat a liquid diet with texture so you don't get bored? Well, you can. That is in fruit. Fruit is mostly water. And unlike drinking your nutrients, when you eat fruit, you are chewing. So the more you chew, remember, the more full you feel. I don't like added sugar, but I do think we've mixed up sugar with fruit. I mean, a sugar molecule is just a chemical, and that chemical we're adding to so many things, including sprinkling on our fruit. So that is why we are getting sick from sugar toxicity. But whole foods with fruit, with a little bit of sugar, is not the same. I mean, really, if we wanted to know the effects of pure sugar on the human body, we can look back in history over 100 years ago when insulin was first discovered. At that time, we were surprised that patients actually got better blood sugar control with lower insulin requirements when they place their patients with diabetes on a high carbohydrate, low fat diet, even if it was a highly processed, sugary, starchy diet. However, we have to separate outcomes. Having better sugar control may not actually reduce people's mortality from cardiovascular disease when they have high insulin. And I've seen that myself. Insulin is an inflammatory protein that ultimately causes inflammation in the blood vessels, actually destructive inflammation. So I see people who've had diabetes for decades, well controlled, perfect hemoglobin A1C. But in the last few years, they started increasing their injection for insulin because they got a little lax in their diet. And even though they had perfect hemoglobin A1C levels, they were actually destroying their blood vessels. And they present with gangrene, sepsis, and kidney failure. Now, of course, at that point, they're willing to do anything to reverse and save their organs or their limb. But at those end stages, oftentimes it's damage beyond repair. And the problem with diabetes and obesity, they've existed a long time, but not at the scale in which we are seeing people today. And ancient cultures like Japan, they honestly have it down to a science how to cultivate super obese people. They are sumo wrestlers, and they've been around for centuries. Yet the majority of the Japanese population are not obese. They're actually quite skinny people. But if you take a look at the sumo wrestler diet, you'll see that they eat a lot of refined starches. They eat a lot of fat. And they eat a lot of meat, and they wash it down with alcohol. But that's not the average Japanese diet. The average Japanese diet is skinny because they have portion control. They stop before they're full, and they eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And simply, when you have a limit, you have to minimize processed foods. And in America, we don't need a randomized controlled trial to know we're eating a sumo wrestler diet, chugging down massive amounts of calories, a lot of which have very little texture, so they're easier to just swallow. Coconut ice cream, it may taste good, but it's loaded with saturated fat to inhibit the metabolism of the sugar that's in the ice cream. Saturated fat is known to be a mitochondrial toxin that reduces cell surface insulin receptors to cause insulin resistance. Therefore, if you place anybody on a high saturated fat diet, you will make them begin their sumo wrestler journey, increase insulin and insulin resistant within days so they can start packing on weight. And of course, if you control their calories, they may never get there. But if you don't control their calories and you feed them a lot of refined foods, they'll get there a lot faster. And doctors, we've been debating for decades how to best solve the obesity crisis with radical treatments, from removing part of their stomach to injecting people with hormones that manipulate their brain. In the 1940s, Dr. Walter Kepner, he fed people white rice, and that actually reversed obesity. It lowered insulin, it lowered blood sugars, and it reversed end-stage diabetic retinopathy in some of his patients. However, the rice diet was not without detrimental effects, and this is because rice is not a nutrient-rich food. It's nutrient deficient. And literally some of his patients didn't make it. Now, some people find it easier to just totally give up carbohydrates and then eat protein. But when you give up all carbohydrates, you're giving up an important class of macronutrients. And you think you've reversed the insulin resistance problem because you've lost weight, but in fact, you're actually not improving it as much as you can if you didn't include the weight loss. Now, we are surrounded by processed food. There's 15,000 new processed foods every year, and it's so hard to know what to eat. You have to be a food PhD to understand how to read the labels. I mean, food is being invented at an astronomical rate. I don't think evolution ever worked so fast. And so we're trying to seek substitutes for the ingredients that we're addicted to, right? Like sugar. Really, have you ever seen the ingredient label for a whole food or a whole fruit? In reality, we're not supposed to be eating individual nutrients, right? We're supposed to eat the entire food with all the proteins, fats, and carbs, and vitamins, and minerals, and antioxidants, right? Who just eats nutrients? Maybe Brian Johnson? But the rest of us, we actually eat real food. And unfortunately, ultra-processed foods are often adding chemicals to look like sugar, taste like sugar, and manipulate our taste buds, but they actually do more than that. And if you want to know my opinion about sugar substitutes and sweeteners, watch the next video.